almost that time in the season, and based on my sweater, you probably think it's the holidays, but it's actually the NBA trade deadline. It's coming up in about 2 months, but the most important date that you guys need to know is December 15th. This is when the unofficial start date of the NBA trade deadline does begin. And there are 3 Boston Celtics players that now will be eligible to be in trade conversations. We're going to break them down here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. If you guys are not subscribed to this channel, honestly, what are we doing? You can join over 40,000 Boston Celtics fans right here in one place. We go live for Celtics games. We talk about news, rumors, breaking news, and I just give my opinions and highlights on the Boston Celtics. So if you guys want to go ahead and join that, all you guys have to do is hit that sub button. All right, let's talk about 3 Boston Celtics players that are now going to be eligible after December 15th to be possibly traded away from the Boston Celtics. And I'm just going to preface this. I don't really think the Boston Celtics should trade anybody. I don't. I think our roster looks great. I would let other teams adjust to new players. But Brad Stevens has a mind of his own, and he likes to maybe make some couple of changes here and there. So here are 3 players that may end up on the chopping block. Let's go on ahead and talk about Neemias Queta. Big Neemi. I've been a fan of Neemi since he was a two-way player with Boston. You guys know this. Find it in the archives. And there's a good reason why I love Neemias Queta. I think he's a phenomenal project for Joe Mazzulla and Brad Stevens. When you break down a guy like Neemias Queta, he more recently signed a multi-year deal with Boston. That's 3 years that Brad Stevens, this last offseason, looked at him and said, look, I want you around for the next 3 years. And he means it because he's playing career-high minutes per game. Not to mention, he's cheap as hell. He's like $2 million a year, which is great for the level of talent that he brings. You're probably thinking, Allie, why would you ever trade him? Well, he has his flaws. I still think he fouls too much. I think his rim protection can get a little bit better. But he's increasing on the offensive side of the ball, too, which is why I think Joe Mazzulla has found different ways to implement him in the rotation. About 6 points per game, nearly 5 boards a game, 1 block a game, and he's shooting 65% from the field. You're starting to see the same kind of confidence that Joe Mazzulla instilled in Pritchard now be instilled in a guy like Neemias Queta. Not to mention, I love his width, his height. I think he is a phenomenal size to be in the paint. So my overall opinion here is going to be don't trade Neemias Queta. Do not trade him for any players out there that could possibly be worth $2 million or less. I just don't think there's a lot of great talent out there that you can get for what you're paying Neemias Queta. And he's already started to make a name for himself in this rotation. He's already moved up to third-string center, which is Porzingis, Horford, then Neemias Queta, then Luke Kornet, who we'll talk about in just a minute. So, if you guys love Luke Kornet, go on ahead and like this video for me because Luke Kornet is the player we are going to talk about next. So, if you guys want to talk about Luke, go on ahead, hit that thumbs up button for me. But before we jump into Kornet and that other player I've got to talk about here, let me go on ahead and tell you guys about our sponsor on Celtics Today. That is PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in America. I play PrizePicks every single day. So if you guys want to go on ahead and join me, it's super easy. All you guys have to do is just download the app. Once you get there, just pick more or less. That's it. On at least 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 200 times your cash running your game all season long on PrizePicks. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with PrizePicks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including Cali, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. And they put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Not to mention the promotions. I love a good deal, especially around the holidays. And every single week, all year round, they do have Taco Tuesday, which is you get 25% off a player's projected stats. And today they have Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I'm going to take the more on Giannis and the more on Luka Doncic in terms of scoring. So if you guys want to go ahead and make your picks, all you have got to do is just download the app today. Use code CLNS. This will give you guys $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Download the PrizePicks app. Use promo code CLNS for a first-time $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. The man of the hour, the Green Kornet. Let's talk about Big Luke. Here's why he could possibly be on the trade block is because what Brad Stevens did in the offseason doesn't tell me that they're really looking to have Luke Kornet around for a long time. I think the reason why they kept Luke Kornet around specifically for this season is because you walked into the year knowing you weren't going to have Kristaps Porzingis for the first 3 months. They signed him to a 1-year deal in the offseason. He's already got some unsteady rotation minutes, and he's making about $2 million this year. So he kind of falls in that same bucket as Neemias Queta. I think you can interchange Queta's role and Kornet's role depending on who your matchup is. Because Kornet has the height of Porzingis and kind of has the frame of KP, I think he does work out really well in that Celtics rotation. But I do know this, is that with Luke Kornet, he's getting better every single season. It's been really fun to watch him grow, and you guys can also check the archives. I was not a Luke Kornet fan at the beginning of last year. I wanted this man gone. But now, when I'm starting to realize, and he's starting to realize what his assets are, he's your best screener. And when you have as many offensive weapons on the team that the Celtics do, you need guys to set up shots for Tatum, for Brown, for Holiday. And that's what Luke Kornet does every single time that he is in. And I do think that he is one of your better rim protectors coming off the bench. He's a very solid defender. When he gets switched on, he knows how to laterally move from the right post to the left post. He knows where his position is supposed to be. The only thing I don't like about Kornet is this, dive he does whenever somebody shoots a three and he launches his long, lanky body at him. But I guess that's just how he likes to play perimeter defense. It could use some work, but mainly his role is to play down low, and I do think that is what he does best. So when you look at the center depth here for Boston Celtics, they're actually kind of interchanging these three players here. Sometimes you'll see Neemias Queta be in the third spot, Luke Kornet in the fourth, Tillman in the fifth. Sometimes you could see Luke Kornet in the fifth, Tillman in the fourth, Neemias Queta in the third. So I think that when you have a guy like Kornet and Queta, you're going to get two very different types of players, but it's a bulkier depth chart at the center position than most NBA rosters are. I'm going to go with don't trade Luke Kornet. He's on a 1-year contract. You don't have to re-sign him at the end of the year, but you also don't know with Kristaps Porzingis being made of glass. I do think that Luke Kornet is a good injury insurance, and I don't know how many centers you can get out there for $2 million that can do what Luke Kornet does in this system for Boston. So I got a question here for you guys. Should Boston make a trade at all at the deadline? Type T for trade, type P for pass. I'm going to go with pass. I think they're good, but Brad Stevens is a lot better at being a GM than I could ever be, so that's my opinion on that. The last player that is now eligible for a trade by December 15th will be Xavier Tillman. Of course, he was our last year pickup at the trade deadline. We picked him up from the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's go on ahead and talk about Tillman, shall we? He signed a 2-year deal this offseason. He signed a veteran minimum of $2.2 million, even though he's 25 years old. But when you look at Tillman's game, he's a little bit of the black sheep of the family when it comes to that center position, because I do think that in the center depth chart, Horford, Porzingis, Luke, and Neemias are going to give you a little bit in terms of offense. I think Tillman is trying to up his offensive game, but he's more of a defensive asset. And that's okay, because defense can also get you on the court. But when you look at Tillman, when he's on the floor and he's trying to make some shots here, I don't feel very confident when he's got the ball in his hands, not to mention from downtown. Now, I see Noah Dalzell, who goes to every single Boston Celtics game. She covers the Celtics for CLNS. She's always tweeting that Tillman's going 5 for 5 from downtown in the pregame. But then we don't see any of that in the real game. It's almost like he becomes a shell of himself when he now has the opportunity to take a shot. And we've seen wide open shots as well. I mean, you can see right there in terms of offense, it's not giving anything. 1.2 points a game, less than 26% from the field, 20% from the three-point line. And you know Joe Mazzulla does not like to see that three-point percentage. So when you look at a guy like Tillman, he's off to a very shaky start. The only positive is that it's 15 games. So he can still get better moving forward. But if he doesn't get better by the trade deadline, then I do possibly think that Tillman can be on the chopping block. This is the most likely, in my opinion, to be traded out of those three guys that will be eligible on December 15th. So what would a trade with Xavier Tillman possibly look like, because he is worth $2.2 million? Well, how about a guy like Keon Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets? The latest report from Shams Charania is pretty much saying they're looking for a rebuild anyways. Several players right now are available for trade discussions, so maybe go and try to pull another shooting guard from Brooklyn and Keon Johnson. What you're going to get there is a lot better production on offense. Not the numbers I typically want in a trade like this just yet in terms of offensive production, but it's something that I look at and I think Joe Mazzulla can get that three-point percentage up. This Celtics offense can definitely find a way for his field goal percentage to rise with more open shots and so forth into rebounds and assists. So my last question for you guys here, should the Celtics trade Xavier Tillman? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I'm going to go with no. I think he is the more likely player to be traded, but I think if anybody's going to get traded this year, it will be Jaden Springer. But another video on that later. If you guys haven't joined already, go on ahead and hit subscribe.